Dobar dan from Oakley. This is the Rorschach Serbia update from the 23rd of December, 2025. A quick summary of what's going down in Serbia. On Wednesday the 17th, the EU held the EU-Western Balkans summit in Brussels to discuss the future of the EU candidate countries. All candidate countries participated except Serbia. President Vučić had announced prior to the summit that Serbia would boycott the event due to the EU's failure to advance Serbia's accession talks. Last week, we reported that Vučić's suggestion that all Western Balkan countries should join the bloc simultaneously, but the EU dismissed it. Vučić said that Serbia had made significant progress in the EU accession talks, but that the EU itself failed to acknowledge it. On the other hand, in the past year, the EU has been flagging various issues from Serbia, from human rights violations to controlled media, that have been stalling its path to the EU. The country's decision not to attend the summit puts yet another nail in the coffin in its path to the Union. In other news, Nataša Latković, a business editor at the independent media outlet Nova, published an essay in Serbian about an investigation into Serbia's contract with Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law. The project aimed to demolish the protected General Army building in order to build a Trump hotel with Kushner as the investor, but it came to a halt due to civil protests against it. The Organized Crime Prosecutor's Office is collecting evidence on the deal, including several top officials who signed it. Kushner eventually withdrew from the project, but Latković revealed that he did not do it out of respect for those who protested against the project. It was because the deal promised him that removing the building from the cultural heritage list would have no consequences to Kushner's reputation and his company, but there were. Cultural Minister Selakovic forged documents to delist the building, which the public called out, and he is now in the process of being indicted, breaking the contract. The breach now allows Kushner to ask for compensation of up to around 6 billion dinars, which is around $60 million. Read the essay with the link in the show notes. Since we mentioned protests, on Sunday the 21st, students from the University of the southwestern city of Novi Pazar, also known as DUNP, held a protest to raise awareness of the university's issues and slow decay. Students from all over Serbia went to the protest, some even on foot, to support their peers. On another note, UN experts in the field of freedom of speech, Irene Khan and Gina Romero, spoke out on Saturday the 20th about the violence against journalists and independent media outlets in Serbia. Khan and Romero spoke about instances of high-ranking government officials threatening reporters, which the pro-government media broadcast, endangering the journalists while they work. They said that such rhetoric has proven to be dangerous, as Serbia saw a record number of attacks on reporters since the start of anti-corruption student-led protests. Speaking of media freedom, as we have been reporting on previous shows, our YouTube channel was taken down, but we got back up with a new one. The ruling regime wanted to silence us because we tell the truth. Meanwhile, on Thursday the 18th, the U.S. announced a ban on imports from China's Linglong tire factory in the central town of Zrenjanin in Serbia. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection press release stated that they suspect the company of using forced labor in supply chains. Balkan Insight Research Network, or BERN, cooperated with the anti-trafficking organization ASTRA and the Serbian-based Initiative for Economic and Social Rights, A11, to report on the exploitation of Vietnamese and Indian workers at the Linglong site in Zrenjanin. The group accused Linglong of retaining identity documents, intimidation and threats, isolation, excessive overtime, withholding of wages, and many other wrongdoings. Linglong has denied all of the accusations so far. Since we mentioned BERN, on Tuesday the 23rd, they published an investigative report on the promotion and sale of Serbian-made guns in the U.S. on YouTube videos. In the report, BERN states that there have been several YouTube videos by U.S.-based firearm retailers showcasing revolvers with Serbian police tags, owner names, case numbers, and engravings, all pointing to the weapons being previously in police ownership. BERN highlighted that these weapons were exported to the U.S., adding that it must have been the police who had sold them to the U.S. firearm dealers. While the Interior Ministry in Serbia is denying that their policemen or the police in general have sold weapons in their possession to U.S. dealerships, BERN noted that there are no other possible ways for the weapons to end up there. However, the report pointed out that Serbian law does not regulate the sale of surrendered or seized weapons, which BERN considers these weapons to be. Going back to factories for a minute, about 1,900 employees of the Leoni company in the southern town of Malošište lost their jobs as the factory there shut down. The shutdown comes amid the opening of a new factory owned by a different company near Malošište in the neighboring city of Niš, which President Vučić himself formally opened a few weeks ago. The president of the Association of Free and Independent Trade Unions of Serbia said that the reason behind Leoni's shutdown is the halt of subsidies, noting that the government used Leoni to attract foreign investments whilst completely neglecting the domestic economy. On that note about the economy, The state's statistical office reported last week that both the value of exports and imports increased by about 9% annually. The manufacturing industry accounted for nearly 90% of total exports and 70% of total imports, making it the most influential. Serbia exported the most to Germany, Bosnia, Italy, and China, while it imported the most from China, Germany, Turkey, and Italy. The Quarterly Monitor publication, which focuses on economic trends and policies in Serbia, published a report on GDP growth in the third quarter of 2025. The report said that GDP increased by only 2% from July to September, which is below the average of Central and Eastern European nations of around 3%. Publication noted that this trend is the result of domestic and international instabilities, such as the US-based sanctions on the state-owned energy company NIS. In some news about the environment, ecological activists and professionals are warning the public about an increase in air pollution in Serbia. In the wake of the heating season, air quality in major cities has been so bad that doctors are advising citizens not to leave their homes unless it's absolutely necessary. The Environmental Protection Agency said that the southern city of Niš, in the eastern city of Negotin, and the northern town of Sopot are among the most air polluted in Serbia, with the concentration of harmful particles exceeding the allowed limit by 15 times. Closing this edition on a cultural note, the Matras Hall in Belgrade's port will be hosting a New Year's celebration organized by the Serbian pop culture magazine Dragi. The party will feature the famous Serbian singer Vlado Đorđev alongside several DJs with pop, techno, and retro hits from the 90s and 2000s. Tickets are available online and range from 500 dinars, $5, to around 4,000 dinars, or $40. For more information about Dragi Bravo's New Year's party, check out the link in the show notes. And that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. We just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been listening, subscribing, and sharing their thoughts with us. Your support keeps us going, and we're grateful for every one of you. Happy holidays! Vidimo se!